Hi, my name is Eloy. I also go by Umbramancer here, and this is part one of the video that I really wanted to make before, but I had to do a preliminary video, sort of to explain and give context to the lens through which I have come to view a lot of things in old school D&D and help shape my opinions for this video. So that video is called Inside D&D. There are two wolves, and I'll link it, but you should find it on my video library. So, the impetus for this video is that a couple of weeks ago, Condor DM made a nice video called How to Enjoy Old School D&D. I'll link it below, and again, I've mentioned him before and his very interesting ideas. And so in this video, I think he's talking about learning to enjoy old school by learning how to confront lethality and high mortality in old school games and character death. And so the 2 points that he makes here that I really liked were, number one is let go and enjoy the moment. And his second point, which I'm not 100% convinced of, but it's interesting, is that DMs are better at doing this. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. So, assuming you've seen my previous video, Inside D&D, you'll know about my lens, right? And so this idea of letting go and enjoying the moment, I think this is linked to, if you view it through my lens, then it's linked to whether or not the game is closer to Dungeon Crawl mode or closer to story mode, right? And I think there's workarounds and things that you can do to tailor the experience toward the end of the spectrum that you would like to have, right? Do you want to make it more Dungeon Crawl? Do you want to make it more story mode? And how to deal with character death depending on what you're trying to achieve. Again, I think the most helpful first step to do is discuss with your Dungeon Master, right, in session 0 or in emails before the actual game or however you guys communicate, right? It's try to get a sense for, what the game is going to be more. Is it going to be more story mode or more Dungeon Crawl? Because then the techniques and the workarounds that you'll do will be tailored to those agendas or purposes, right? And so I'd like to look at high lethality and mortality rates and character death through this lens, and let's start with Dungeon Crawl mode. Now, on the follow-up video that I plan to make on this subject, I'll be focusing on story mode. But let's go to Dungeon Crawl. So in Dungeon Crawl, absolutely do what Condor says, right? Learn to let go, learn to enjoy the moment, and if they die, just make a new character. Now, this is kind of hard to do, and so how do we go about that? As an aside, Condor postulates that DMs are better at this than people, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but I think he's on the right track when he says this, because I think the more you play and the more characters you make, then, you learn how to hold on loosely to those characters. Once you've made a bunch and seen a bunch of them, die unexpectedly, or even if you make them for campaigns or adventures, and sometimes those collapse through no fault of your own, right? The game just fizzles out, right? So you wind up eventually getting involved in a new adventure or a new campaign, and so you learn, you wind up making a new character in any case. And so how to learn to let go and not just obsess over having the character survive. And so this immediately brought to mind this picture that I watched a long time ago in 1999 called Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. And so in this movie, Forrest Whitaker plays a mob hitman who lives as a samurai. And so he views himself as a samurai attached to a lord, right? Who is another mobster in the movie. It's kind of weird. But throughout the movie, he's reading from this book called the Hagakure, which is, if you look on Wikipedia, it's a book about a man's view of Bushido, right? That's somebody who lived in Japan in, I think, 18th century. And it's this man's perspectives on Bushido, the warrior code of the samurai, right? And so the very first words out of Forrest Whitaker's mouth is reading directly from the Hagakure. And so his first words in the movie are, "The way of the samurai is found in death. Meditation on inevitable death should be performed daily." And then he describes the meditations and some of the types of death that should be contemplated. And it ends that first paragraph with, "And every day without fail, one should consider himself as dead. This is the substance of the way of the samurai." And so, again, quoting from Wikipedia, it's Bushido is the way of dying, or living as though you were already dead. And so the true meaning of that is that by having constant awareness of death, people can achieve a transcendent state of freedom, whereby it is possible to perfectly fulfill one's calling as a warrior. So, and that's a quote from Wikipedia, right? So what it means is you are able to sacrifice yourself and sacrifice your life in pursuit of the safety of your Lord, right? In the pursuit of honor. And so for some reason, this movie always stuck with me. And this idea of living as though you were already dead is a mentality that you can adopt for your character, right? So you might discuss with your DM, can I use an actual samurai in the game, or is there a cultural analog in this particular setting where, I could play something akin to a samurai? And even if they say, no, it's not really that type of world, well, you just play a fighter and you just try to adopt that mentality. This guy, it doesn't mean, jumping off a cliff for no reason, right? You want to survive, you want to live, but you are willing to take whatever steps are needed in order to fulfill your duty, in this case of a samurai, right? And so another similar way to do is to play something like a Viking. Again, talk to your DM. Is there a cultural analog? Can I use a literal Viking, right? Because the idea is that Vikings, at least as portrayed in popular culture, right? If you watch Vikings or The Last Kingdom or movies like that, right? So the mindset is that life is short and brutal and painful, and so you live it to the fullest, right? Because it's short and you don't know when you're going to die. So you do as much as you can and you enjoy it as much as you can. And if you've happened to fall in battle, well, the worst case scenarios, you go to Valhalla, right? So, the drill, right? You die, the Valkyries come down, they choose the men who died in battle and take them off to paradise to live in the Hall of the Gods and feast and drink and fight every day. And so try to look at it that way. Maybe role-playing the Viking or the analog to it can give you the mindset of I want the characters, I'm going to do things to try to survive, but if I have to die, then I might as well die in battle, right? So it's another step in learning to embrace this mortality and lethality of the game. Another option is to try a character with a code, right? Like a knight, or maybe a warrior or priest, or just any type of character really with some sort of either religious conviction or a strong sense of community and ethics and stuff like that. So the point is, try to make a character who lives and dies for something greater than yourself, right? And remember, you don't need an 8-page backstory. What you do need is a little bit of context. Like this, I'm playing kind of a samurai, I'm playing kind of a Viking, I'm playing kind of a knight, and hold that as your character concept, and just play your regular fighter through that lens, and that way you'll learn how to, let's just enjoy the experience right now, and if we have to die, then we die in battle, right? Okay, so this is again geared to a dungeon crawl mode game, but what about a game which is more story mode in focus or agenda, right? It's a game where your character has a personal story. Or, what if your character has a backstory, like he's a prince and your uncle killed your father and married your mother and stole your kingdom, right? So he usurped the throne, right? So can you experience a tale of righteous vengeance if your character dies in the first session? And so the answer is yes, sort of, right? This is one of the problems with story mode, right? You cannot guarantee survival because that defeats the purpose of a game. And so death must be in the mix, in the equation. But there are things that you can do to minimize that death, and even if the character dies, you can still get the opportunity to tell, to experience something akin to a personal story. And it's a little trick that I've come to call the meta character. And so the meta character is going to be the subject for our next video. I'm going to try and keep these relatively short, and next time we'll try it from the story mode perspective. So until then, any comments or feedback are welcome. Put them below, and thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.